As we have seen in the last video, we have covered the basic concepts of Introduction to Software Engineering. In that, we have covered the basic IEEE standard of the software definition. Then we have seen the nature of the software. And within the nature of the software, we have come across the basic software engineering definition. And then we have seen software engineering domains, which comprised of various softwares that we spoke about. That is the application software, the system software, the web applications, the product line application softwares, and artificial intelligence softwares, and so on. And then after that, we have concentrated on the layers of the software process that included tools, methods, the focus on the quality. So today, let's start off our discussion with the topic software process. Right. So moving to the software process, it is told that it is a collection of activities, actions, and tasks that are performed when some work product is to be created. So what does this mean? So whenever you are given a task for creation of a product, we are including it with few activities and actions performed on the activities that are specified and the tasks related to that specific activity. So the group of all these three things, that is the activities, the actions, and the tasks, are called a process. And all these things, as I have mentioned, we can see in the diagram, the activities, the actions, and the tasks, all of them comprise a process and they are trying to create a product. Right. So let us look into what exactly the activity defines us. Activity is trying to achieve a main goal or an objective, that is communicating with stakeholders. Communicating with the stakeholders. So stakeholders can be some government agencies or employees or various list of people. So an activity strives to achieve a broad objective. So what does it do? Mainly, it needs to communicate with the stakeholders. What are their requirements? So basing upon their requirements, we can plan out a list of activities. And then the actions like the process like actions and tasks follow. So initially in the stage of activity, we are supposed to concentrate on what is the basic needs the stakeholder requires. So moving to the second point, regarding the activity, we can say that it is basically applied regardless of the application domain, size of the project, and complexity. It means that the stakeholder has given us some requirements. Let us assume, right? He has communicated and has given us some specific requirements. So those requirements specified by the stakeholder, you should regard whatever the things the stakeholder has said, we should completely focus on the application domain, the size of the project. That is, however big the size of the project is, or how difficult is it to execute the things. So keeping aside all these things, we have to take care on his requirements and even sort out by executing all these things. That is, he has to meet his requirements, whatever he has said. So the application has to be executed, right? In whatever domain it is. So that is nothing but regardless of application domain. And the size of the project. Don't bother about the size of the project. You have to focus and execute, even though it is a very complex one. So this actually, the diagram depicts the flow of the activities, actions, and tasks that are involved in a process. Moving to the actions. So what does action includes? Once the activities are stated or communicated by the stakeholder, next is the process of action. How do you execute these specified data by the stakeholder? How do you, what are the actions that are included? So here, when you say action, it includes a set of tasks that produce a major work product like an architectural design model. So what does this mean? You have got the activities and then you are supposed to apply some action to those activities. For that, we require to build a model, that is a design model. And that design model should be properly architectured. That is, you have various ways or various templates for various architectures. So whatever is relevant to the stakeholder, basing upon his requirements, we try to design the relevant module. So this talks about the action that is trying to merge or club some set of tasks in a proper sequence, and they are trying to execute the things by taking a architecture design model. So the third category in the elaboration of the process is the task. So tasks are nothing but it focuses on small but well-defined objective, like a unit test that produces a noticeable outcome. So what is this trying to say? You don't execute very lengthy modules. That is, when a project is given, we try to break them down into modules. And these modules, each module is considered a task. And those tasks, we can have some specific people who are trying to do that particular task. So the tasks are divided into modules and each module is trying to be tested individually. It's like trying to test in a unit testing pattern that produces noticeable outcomes. What do you mean by noticeable outcomes? Noticeable outcomes is nothing but if you are trying to execute a model, you are able to focus on the result that is being obtained. But at the same scenario, if you're trying to dump the entire code and trying to search for results, we may not have a clear understanding on the outcomes. That is why we are trying to break down the tasks into different modules, and each module is unit tested, and each unit, on performing the unit testing, we are trying to get noticeable outcomes. That is, if you are having any flaws or bugs or errors that arise, we will be able to solve it easily. And it reduces the time, effort as well. So moving to the next category, that is the process framework. Right. What does it define? It forms the foundation for a complete software engineering. The framework is nothing but you can tell it to be a blueprint, a template, an architecture, a model, any terms. There are so many synonyms for the framework. So a process framework is nothing but it is trying to form a foundation. That is, it is a base for the software engineering. Now, what does this framework indicate? As you can look, it says that it includes a set of umbrella activities that are applicable across the entire software process. So I repeat, framework is including set of umbrella activities. Here I have said umbrella activities. So just assume how an umbrella is. It's like you can have lot of features within it, and it is trying to depict different works by different people. What are their tasks involved? How are they doing it? What is the cost? Whether they are getting the right results in an efficient manner. So each category has its own task. All of them are defined under a framework, and that framework in turn is called set of umbrella activities that are applicable across the entire software process. As our discussion is on the software process, we had to discuss about this process framework. Right. Moving forward, the activities of the process framework. Right. So here we have 5 major activities for a process framework. That is communication, planning, the third one is modeling, the fourth one is construction, and the fifth one is the deployment. So these are the 5 basic activities of a process framework. As we have said, process framework is including a set of umbrella activities that is acting as a base for the entire software engineering. So to elaborate what is process framework, we need to discuss these 5 broad categories or activities of process framework. So I repeat, they are communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. Right. Now starting off with communication. So what is it saying? When you say you are communicating for a process or for a project, in the other terms, initially we say that you are collaborating with the customer. So what do you mean by collaborating with the customer? It is that each one of us try to create various applications, try to execute or try to do some task. For what is the intention that you are doing all this? You have to satisfy the customer. The end user output has to be efficient. Then only whenever you are trying to create an application, it works good. It exists for a longer period of time. So that is why you need to collaborate with the customers. Talk with them, know their requirements, know their specifications. Will they reach our intentions, whatever the developer is having? Is he able to meet the requirements of the customer? So only when you are collaborating, communicating with the customer, then only we can execute the right things in a right way. So coming to the second point, as you can see, it is understand stakeholders' objectives. That is trying to know the goals of the stakeholders. So as I have listed previously, there are various stakeholders. They can be employees, government agencies, they can be suppliers, they can be owners, they can be investors, they can be creators, and many more. Each one in their own field are called stakeholders. So we have to understand the objectives or goals of a stakeholder. So these are the things that have to be obtained in the first activity of the process framework, that is the communication. So moving to the second category, that is the planning, right? What do you understand by planning? So the general definition of planning is, what are we supposed to do tomorrow? We have to jot them down in points for a better execution of our next day, right? You have to write them, and the time we specify, is it executable at this particular time? Else give them some additional time. All this comes under planning. So what exactly is planning in the activities of process framework? So look at the first point that is specified, simplified if map exists. Now what is this map? That is what I have told you. It is the document that a user does, an individual does. So what are my duties tomorrow? For that, what I have to do it today, what I have to plan today. So you have to simplify if map exists. So that map is helping to guide the team. Map helps guide the team. So if you are having a proper plan or a proper document or a template that you have to do, that's right, it is trying to guide the entire team. So in a software company, this second point is apt. It is map helps guide the team. It is nothing but, as we can take the example of our college, right? Every activities is priorly posted, and the next day, people who are relevant to that particular activity have to report, have to execute their things. If the activities are not planned priorly, the next day becomes very clumsy. Who has to do what? We don't get that clarity. So you have to plan the things properly. That is right. That is like, if the employees are working well, then the execution of or running the institution in a proper way goes. So it's like map helps guide the team. Coming to the third category, that is the software project plan. Map the software project plan. So once the map is ready, who has to do what has to be given to the people in their specific areas. Then comes the focus of the technical tasks, risks, and resources. So once you have got the map, got the plan, then you are mapping that to the software project. Then comes the focus of the technical tasks, risks, and resources. Okay? Meaning, what are the major things that have to be executed or worked upon are called technical tasks. Risks, if you are doing this particular execution or trying to implement this particular code, are there any risks in this? Right? So all those have to be noted. The risks is a major category or major point in the planning phase. And then resources. Do you have right resources or large amount of databases where you can gather the data? So all these things are nothing but the resources. Whether they are there or not, you are supposed to specify in the planning stage. And work products, work schedule, right? And the schedule has to be properly planned and prepared. So fast recap of what are the things that are exist in planning. You are supposed to simplify if the map exists. That map helps to guide the entire team in that particular project. Then we focus on the technical tasks, the risks involved. the resources available, and working schedule. Right. Moving to the third category, that is modeling. Right. What are the activities involved in modeling? So when you look at the first point, a landscaper, I'm just giving you some examples, then I will elaborate clearly what exactly is modeling. A landscaper, a bridge builder, or an aeronautical engineer, a carpenter, an architect work with models every day. Right. Whether we know or we don't know, educated people, uneducated people, all of them do work, but indirectly there is a model behind their work, right? So if you consider any examples, a bridge builder or a landscaper or a carpenter, I think most of us have observed a carpenter. If you are trying to ask him to do some work, he takes proper measurements. That is his way of modeling to his work. Right? Or an architect. Obviously, we need a blueprint, or a civil engineer draws the things before the construction is started. All this is he's trying to model in his own ways. So the third activity is trying to work with models. That is creating a proper sketch of the thing that is decided, so that you will understand it in a big picture. What do you mean by big picture? Right. If I want to construct my house, so what do? I go to a civil engineer, he draws a plan for me. So I assume it. How does it look at the end? So that's called a big picture. My final view of that particular image. So to do all these things, you require a proper model, and software engineering supports us with various models. Right. So moving to the fourth category, that is the construction phase. So what are we doing in construction? This activity combines code generation. It can either be manual code or automated code, right? So this terms that manual and automation includes in the most of the phases in the testing, right? So when you say construction, how are you generating the code for the activity? Whether it is manually are you doing it or automated, that is the system is trying to generate you the things, right? Nowadays we are having so many things online. The code is available online, and we are trying to modify it basing upon our requirements and trying to execute that is relating to our own application. So that's called automated. And the second point, if you see under construction, it is testing to uncover errors in the code. So the first phase is you are trying to combine code that is manual or automated. Manual is nothing but doing manually. Automation is generated by the system. And once the code is there with you, you are trying to test it so that you remove the errors, or you can say uncover the errors in the code. So the code part and the removing of the bugs is done in the construction phase. So this ends the fourth activity of the process framework. So moving to the last activity, that is the deployment. So what do you mean by deployment? It is nothing but a software as a complete entity. Complete entity is nothing but a final product, right? When you come to the deployment phase, it is like it is an end product, or partially completed increment is delivered to the customer. For example, right? I own a company, right? And I give projects. I get projects from the clients abroad, and I'm trying to give those projects to my employers, right? If the task is very small, they can complete the entire task in one go and it is executed. That's a final product. But if the project is very huge, what do? As I said, you break down them into different modules, and each module is executed and checked. That is nothing but partially completed increment is delivered to the customer. So you show him partially. Okay, this is done. Is it fine? Second, this is done. Is it fine? Just like you book a cameraman for the functions and all. What does he do? He shows you all the clicks or some kind of bits and pieces of the video that he has taken, and he just confirms it. Is it okay? Then 4 to 5 times, if you are fine with it, then he tries to finish off all the things at one go and gives us the final video out of it. So that's called deployment. So looking at the diagram that is given below, it is nothing but the activities of the process framework that includes communication, planning, modeling, construction and deployment. So this ends the activities of process framework. Moving further, as I have said, umbrella activities. What is this umbrella activities? They are all the set of umbrella activities for a process framework. So looking at the title, software engineering process framework activities are complemented by a number of umbrella activities, right? So to elaborate the process framework, we are defining a set of umbrella activities. What are these umbrella activities? So you start off with project tracking and control, right? Trying to know the project and technical reviews. Then you have quality assurance. Then you have configure management. Then we have documentation. Then we have reusability. We have measurement, and finally the risk management. Once everything is done, we also have to focus on the risks, right? If you have more number of risks, then the usage of that particular framework goes down. So risks have to be monitored properly, and so that we reduce the errors and then give it to the end user. Fine. So moving in depth regarding this, let us talk about the first one, that is the software project tracking and control. So what is this trying to tell us? It is trying to allow the software team to access progress against the project plan and take necessary action to maintain the schedule. So what is it telling? Initially, we had communication and then we had planning, right? In the activities that we have just seen. So here, when you say software project tracking and control, what is this trying to do? It is allowing the software team to access the progress. What is the progress that has been completed in a plan and take relevant actions to maintain that particular schedule. So it's nothing but tracking that particular project and controlling it till where it has completed, what are the necessary requirements it still needs so that it can be completed on time. So moving to risk management, right? It is trying to focus on the risks that will affect the outcomes of the project. Why do you have to focus on this? Because the quality has to be maintained. And this is taken care by the risk management. Moving to the third one, that is the software quality assurance. So this is trying to define and conduct the activities required to ensure software quality. That is, every time you are trying to define and conduct the activities so that it will show you the software quality. That is trying to repeat the things so that you make them much better. Next are the technical reviews. So technical reviews are nothing but trying to assess the work of the work product in an effort to uncover and remove errors. Technical reviews. See, before, like, for example, if you take students before they face the interviews, they try to attend some mock interviews online or offline. Why do they do that? Because they are trying to perform much better, right? If they have done any faults during their mock interviews, they try to rectify them. So that is why here I'm relating that to this point, that is technical reviews. That is, every time you have to have some reviews in between before it goes to the final release. So that if you are coming across some errors, you are able to remove those errors and then uncover those errors on a daily basis or monthly, quarterly, half-yearly. These reviews go on. So moving further, we have measurement. So what is this measurement? It is trying to define, collect, process, project, product measures. So what do you mean by measurement? You are trying to measure something. What is that measurement? It is assisting the team in delivering the software that meets the stakeholders' needs. Are you satisfying the things? So measurements are nothing but you are trying to take the inputs of the process, the project that you are working on, and the product measures. Why are we requiring this? Because you are trying to deliver the software that is basing to the stakeholders' requirements. Next, moving to the software configuration management. Configuration is nothing but you are trying to configure. That is, manage the effects of change throughout the process, right? So when you are trying to execute something, you may feel that this is not in the right way. I'm trying to change the things. If I change the things, my output will be much better. So you are trying to manage and affect the change throughout the process. So that is nothing but the configuration management tries to take care of. The next one is the reusability management. Reusability, the term itself is saying you have the chance of reusing it. So what is it define? Define criteria for work product reuse. That is, you should not be very specific that the plan is this. I will have to go with the plan only, right? We cannot be fixed with that particular statement because we don't know. You may sometime come across risks and you may not have some relevant resources there with you. So you have to change accordingly, right? So you are trying to define criteria for work product reuse that will include various software components. And there are some mechanisms to achieve this reusable components. Next, work product preparation and production. So what is this trying to tell? It is trying to give some activities that are required to create work products. That is nothing but work product we have said. How do you prepare or product it? You require some documentation. You require some kind of lists, forms, templates, models. All these things are required. So all these things merged together are called work product preparation and production. Next, moving to the overall picture of how the software process looks like. So this was our discussion, software process. So how does this look like? So on the border, you have the process framework. Within that, you have umbrella activities, and within the umbrella activities, you have various framework activities. We have listed few, right? All those things come under the umbrella activities, and then you have software engineering action 1.1. That is, you are trying to break them down into modules. So you can have 5 modules, 6 modules, or you can have n number of modules basing upon how big your application is or how big your project is. So basing on that, you divide them into various actions or task sets. And these task sets involves work tasks, work products, quality assurance points, right? So this gives a complete picture of how a software process looks like and how does it work. I repeat, you have process framework. Within that process framework, you are trying to define various umbrella activities. And within that umbrella activities, you are trying to focus on individual activities or breaking them into different modules. And each module have their own tasks. And when you are focusing on these tasks, we focus on the work product, and the quality of it. Fine. So moving to another small concept, that is, what is engineering practice or software engineering practice? So looking at the diagram, you can break them down into majorly 5 things. We have already seen in the initial slides, I have told about communication that you can see in the first block. Then I have told planning, you can see in the second block. And then we have told modeling. And then we have focused on the testing or construction and then the deployment. So what are the various other features associated with these things? That is, when you say communication, how do you start off with the project? And if you are starting off with your project, do you have the requirements specified? For example, when the final year students are trying to do their projects, what do we ask them to do? First, submit the abstract. What is the abstract? It is nothing but you are trying to tell the student to comprise your entire project into few lines so that we understand what exactly is he doing. So once he submits the abstract, you ask him to submit SRS. SRS is Software Requirement Specifications. So he has to know what is the introduction to his project, what are the present system, and what is he trying to propose, right? And is he able to test on it, try to get the code, and is he able to finally do the things? So that is like you are trying to initiate the project and whether you have the requirement gatherings. Then when you move to planning, you should have a proper schedule and that schedule has to be tracked. And the third phase, modeling, analysis, design, right? You are supposed to analyze every part of your module that is being defined earlier. And next, you are trying to test. If it's a small module or a small project, you test it at once. But if it's a lengthy project or a lengthy application, you are trying to break them down into various modules, and each module is unit tested. And then you are giving those outputs to the customer. If he is satisfied, you go with the next part of the testing. And then finally, you're trying to merge everything and give it to the customer. Lastly, when you say deployment, it's like it is also including delivery, right? Final product given, support, and feedback, right? For example, what are these three terms? So I'll take the example of online shopping as well. Once you have booked something and if it is delivered, you may get a call or you may get a message, right? Saying that give us the feedback, or you require any other assistance or for any other things. There is a support team which acts, right? So when you're trying to buy an item, once it is delivered, they ask whether it is delivered on time or how good was the product, were you satisfied, or you require any changes. So there is a support team to find out all this, and that is trying to give you a feedback of whatever things have been done online, right? So if you just elaborate this, you can say that you're trying to understand the problem in communication analysis phase, then you're trying to plan a solution in modeling and design phase, and then you are trying to move out with your plan, that is your code generation, and finally you are trying to test the quality to examine the result. So these are the major things that happen in a practice of software engineering. So moving to the last topic of today's discussion, those are the myths. Software myths. So what are these software myths? Myths are actually widely held but false beliefs and views which propagate misinformation and confusion among the individuals. So I repeat, what is a myth? It is a false belief and views which people pass or propagate and create a confusion. So when you come to this software myths, they are divided into three categories. That is the management myth, consumer myth, and the practitioner's myth. So moving to the management myth. So the first myth of the management is the available standards and procedures for software are enough. I repeat, what is the first myth of management saying? The available standard and procedures for software are enough. So this can be true, this cannot be true, because whatever things are present today, they may not be applicable for tomorrow for some other people in some other field. So that is considered as a myth. Second, each organization feels that they have state-of-art software development tools since they have the latest computer, right? For example, if I have bought a new laptop today and they don't have any new features installed on it, will it help me in executing my project work or my research work? No. So that's a myth again. So it is trying to say that whatever latest things you have to get updated with the tools. You have to get updated with the technology. Third myth, adding more programmers when the work behind schedule can catch up. Meaning, I have set a plan for a week and each day I have allotted some people for that work, right? And someday that person might not be there. He was not able to do his work because there was no power or there was any other reason. If you have scheduled in this manner, it is saying that you can add some more people and finish off the work. It cannot be possible. So that again stands as a myth 3. Fourth one, outsourcing the software project to a third party and we can relax and let that party build it. Right. It means this is also another myth for the management. If the management thinks that I will give all the responsibilities to the faculty who are there in the institution or to some employees in a company and they just relax, thinking that they will do everything. Right? This cannot happen because they also have to keep a proper check on how the activities are going day by day. So that's a third, another myth of the management myth. Next, coming to the customer myths. The first one is general statement of objective is enough to begin writing programs. The details can be filled later. It's wrong. Or for small instances, it can be fine. But when you say that just defining by writing the small codes cannot be suiting to some kind of works. So coming to the myth 2, Software is easy to change, and it is because it is flexible. All the time, it might be true, it might not be true. You cannot change the softwares every time, or it cannot be as flexible, right? If you take like the softwares that we are using today, there are different versions, right? So sometimes if I'm taking some 8 version, right, that may execute some commands, and if I'm using the 10 version, it might not use. So it is like software is easy to change, but at the same time, you should check whether it is flexible to the things that are there with us. Coming to the last category, that is the practitioner's myth. It is, once the program is written, the job is done. People think that once you are written, the job is done. It cannot be, because you have to check on it, whether it's executing. If it is executing, is it giving you the efficient result? Is it giving you an optimal solution? Okay. Coming to the second myth, until the program is running, there is no way of assessing the quality. So what is it saying? Until the program is running, there is no way of assessing the quality. Yes, it can be true, but sometimes whenever you're trying to run a program, you will get some updations. So those updations have to be checked then and there itself to run that particular module in a proper way. Moving to the third category, that is the only deliverable work product is the working program. No, there are other sources for doing our tasks as well. Coming to the final myth of the practitioner, which is stating that it creates voluminous and unnecessary documentation and invariably slow down software development. So what is it saying? We should not put unnecessary kind of documentation or huge volume of data. We are not supposed to think that, because if you are specifying complete information in the document, right, that part of a document, suppose the 98th line of whatever is there in the document or whatever field you have specified, it can be useful to some employee. It's in his work. So you should never think that it is not required or unnecessary documentation has been done. So this ends today's discussion on the software process. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.